Welcome back. In the next few videos, we're going to work on adding comments to YelpCamp. So currently, all that we have is a list of campgrounds, and when I click on a campground to go to the show page, we see some information about it, but what we want to happen is for there to be a list of comments or reviews here, and then a button that says add a new review, and we can then click on that and go to a form, submit a new comment, and that will take us back here, and we'll see a list of comments. So there's a lot of stuff involved in getting that to work. We have to create the comment model, we have to associate it with the campground model, we have to require all the files correctly, then we have to create all the routes, then we have to create all the views. But we're actually going to start somewhere else. We're going to start by creating what's called a seeds file. And the point of a seeds file is that we can run it to seed our database with some data. So right now we have 4 campgrounds in the database, but what I want to do is write a file that I can run. And what that file will do is empty everything in my database to start, and then it's going to go and add in 3 or 4 campgrounds, and each one will have a few comments. So we have some sample data to work with. And the reason I'm doing this is so that when we add comments in, we'll have a way to see immediately if the comments are working or not. Otherwise, once we create the comment model, then we'd have to get the comment new and create route working, and we have to do a lot more work before we can even tell if our comments are set up correctly. So we're going to create a seeds file. I'm going to do that right now. In the same directory, I'm still working in version 3. I'm going to create a new file called seeds.js. And I'll open that up. So to reiterate, in here, we're going to create a bunch of campgrounds and a few comments for each campground. And at first, we're going to get errors. And this is what some people will call error-driven development, where we write some code that we want to work, we get an error, and then we write some code to make that error go away. And then we keep doing that until it works. So we're going to require mongoose first, just like that. And then we're going to require campground, and that will be require, and this is in the models directory /campground, and I need quotes, can't forget that. There we go. And then what we want to do to start is just wipe everything out of our database. And the easiest way to do that with mongoose is campground.remove, and we're just going to ask it to remove everything. And then we'll add in a callback function, error, and in here, just add a console.log, removed campgrounds. And let's see what our error is here. Expected error to be handled. Okay, so technically that's not a deal breaker, but if we do get an error, we'll add console.log error right here. The next thing I want to talk about is how we're going to run this file. So in my app.js, what I want to be able to do is actually require the seeds file, and we'll call it something like seeddb, and that should be equal to requiring ./seeds, which is the name of our file right here, seeds, and it's in the same directory as app.js, so we need the ./, and then I want to be able to execute it afterwards and do something like seed the database, seeddb. At the beginning, every time we start the server over, this code should run. Right now though, when we require this file, we're not exporting anything, and we want to export a function. So let's go back and let's just write a function here, function seeddb, and we're going to move this code into here, just like that, and indent this a bit. And then we're going to do a module.exports equals seeddb, just like that. And so this will send this function out, and it will be stored inside of seeddb here, and then we can execute it, and it will run whatever's in this function. And all that it does right now is removes all campgrounds. So if it works, when we load up the page, all the campgrounds should be gone, which seems a little counterintuitive for now, but this will make more sense when we have the creation working too. So let's do this now. Node app.js, we get removed campgrounds, so it called this function. If we refresh, we now have no campgrounds. All right, so let's clean this up and add a little comment here. Remove all campgrounds. Then what we want to do next is add in a few campgrounds. So add a few campgrounds, and then we also want to add a few comments eventually. Let's start with the campgrounds. So to create a campground, we need to do a campground campground.create, and we need to pass in data. But if we want to create a bunch of different campgrounds, what I'm going to do is actually define some data up here. We'll just call it data, and it's an array. And in that array, I'm going to have a few objects. And each object is going to be the starter data or the seed data for one campground. So we'll have name, and we'll just do clouds rest again, and then I'll get a new photo. I'll use this one for now. And then that will be image. And then I'll format this a little bit nicer. Let's put this on separate lines. And then we need a description as well. And our description will just be blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's one piece of data. And then I'm going to add in at least two more, just like that. And we'll do one more now. So we have three starter pieces of data. I will change the images. So let's take this one as an image. And we'll call this Desert Mesa or something like that. And then we'll add one more in, and we'll go with this right here. Copy the image URL, and we'll call this Canyon Floor. And we'll paste that image in, and then we'll keep the same description. All right, so what we've done so far, we're not using this yet, but we've defined an array that has three pieces of data, and each one is an object that has a name, image, and description, which is exactly what our model is expecting. If we go over here, model has name, image, and description. Okay, so then what we need to do is actually loop through this data and create a campground for each one. So we can do a for each. So I'll do that right now. We'll do a data.forEach function, and we'll just call it seed. And so that seed is going to represent one of these. And then inside that loop, we're going to do a campground. I already have it written here. Campground.create. And what we're going to pass in is not an object in curly braces. We're going to give it seed, just like that. And then our function here, and this will have error, and we'll also have data. And we'll do our if there's an error, console.log error, else console.log, and we'll just do added a campground. So we've created this array of starter data, three different objects that we want to add to the database, and then we're looping through that, and we're adding each one using campground.create. So if we run this now, if we restart the server, we should see Yelp server has started, YelpCamp server, added a campground, added a campground, added a campground, and then we get removed campgrounds. And that might not be what you're expecting, but the reason that that's happening is really important. This is why we use callbacks. So remember, when we run campground.remove, there's no guarantee that this code is going to happen after this finishes unless we put it inside the callback. So we actually want to move all of this inside of this callback here, right there, campground.remove, and we'll just paste that in, and we'll indent this just like that. So what this will do now is wait until we remove all the existing campgrounds, and then it will add in our new campgrounds. All right, so now we should see those in a different order. And we get removed campgrounds, added, added, added. And if we refresh, we now see those three campgrounds. Okay, so we have our seed data working. Now we want to work on comments. And the way that I'm going to do this is after we create a campground, inside the else, I'm going to create a comment on each campground, and we'll just do the same comment this time. So what we want to do is run comment.create, which doesn't exist yet. It's not going to work, and that's fine. We'll get an error. And the comment that we're going to create will have a text of this place is great, but I wish there was internet. And let's format this a little bit better. So we're going to create this comment that has text, and we'll have an author of Homer. Okay, so this will create a comment, and then we need our callback here, function, error, and then the comment that was created. You can see this is getting out of hand quickly with all these comments. We will see a way to refactor this soon. This is what's called callback hell. We have so many callbacks. So this will run once the comment has created, And once it's created, we then want to associate it with the campground. And then we're going to grab the campground that was created, which we're currently calling data. And rather than calling it data, let's just call it campground. And then down here, we're going to do a campground.comments.push, the new comment that we just created that has this text and this author. And we need a comma here as well. And then once we do that, we need to save the campground. And then we'll also add the error handling in here. So we'll add an if error. So if we can't create a comment, then we'll console.log an error. And if we can create a comment, then we're going to associate it with the campground. And we'll also do a console.log in here that says created new comments. All right, so this is a little bit of a marathon. Let's go over some of this. So what we're doing, we're starting by removing everything in the database, all campgrounds. Technically, we're not removing comments, so we can come back and fix that once we have comments, but we are removing all campgrounds. And then we're creating 3 campgrounds, each one unique because of this seed data. And then once we create one, we're going to create a comment for that one. And the comments are all the same. So we're going to end up with 3 different posts, 3 different campgrounds, but when we click on them, we'll see that they have the exact same comment that says, "This place is great, but I wish there was internet," written by Homer. And then once we create the comment, we then have to associate it with the campground, push it into the comments array on the campground, and then save the campground, and then we'll print out created new comment. And you'll see we have a little warning here, comment is not defined. We'll need to add a var comment equals require the non-existent /models/comment. And this is what I mean by error-driven development. If I stop the server and I restart, I get a message that tells me cannot find module models/comment. In the next video, we're going to focus on making these errors go away. So what we've done is we set up a plan, a seeds file that works the way that we want it to work, but it doesn't quite work yet, and we now need to make it work.